Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'm Jason Weil. It is Wednesday, March 20th, 2024. Welcome to the JupyterLab weekly call. We have, looks like 11 people, including myself, on the call. If you have just joined, please sign in and add anything to the agenda that you want us to discuss. We'll also have an off-the-record segment afterwards. Looks like we still have some additional stuff coming in. But first up is Eric Gentry. Go ahead.
Hi. So if anybody here has admin access for Read the Docs for any of the subprojects, and you want your metrics to be built out, I'm building documentation metrics so you can see what are the most viewed pages, what are the most viewed versions, and they also have not only traffic data, but they have search data. So queries that people type into the documentation search box. So if you want to see that stuff for your subproject, if anybody has access to any of the other ones, please get in touch with me, and I can put those into the repo while I'm building this stuff out. I have JupyterLab mostly done, so if anybody has any other CSVs to add, would be appreciated.
Okay. Any questions, comments on that? If not, I see plenty more edits being made to the agenda in real time here. Mike is next up with some PRs that need review. I don't know, do you want to go through these here or maybe do them in the off the record section? What are you thinking, Mike?
I'm not getting audio, Mike. Is
Mike,
anybody else?
are you available to comment about the pull requests that you pasted in? You are current. Oh, there you are.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry. First, thank you to all the reviewers who already left their reviews on many of the pull requests which need review. I highlighted 3 pull requests. 2 I think were already reviewed by Fred before, but I addressed the comments, and a third one which is fixing some windowing issues in the notebook. I think there is another one which is waiting. Yeah, I will add a third one as well. And I'm just asking if anyone has time. It would be amazing if we could merge a few more pull requests to release a new alpha version of 4.2. I guess early next week. So if you have time by the end of the week to take a look, I would really appreciate that. And the other topic that I have is, and if you have your own pull request, which is tagged for 4.2, and you didn't get a review you wanted, feel free to tag me. So the other issue is, just for visibility, I wanted to highlight that there is a critical vulnerability on Jupyter Server Proxy with advisory now out. The patched versions were available for, I think, about a week. So if you are pulling the latest version, you are safe. But if you had a pin to an older version, it is highly recommended that you upgrade. And we can talk about that later in more detail in the unrecorded section. So yeah, that's all from me.
Okay. Frederick is still typing, but you are next up on the agenda.
Yeah, I can go ahead and finish typing, but
Okay.
most of the things are there. So a small update on the Google Summer of Code. So the contributors can now apply, and they have up to April 2nd. And there's been at least 2 candidates that have sent me and have been in contact with me mainly very strongly. And the 2 subjects that are interested is one is for the experimentation on no-code entry for plugins. And so the idea is to do a bit like VS Code. When you define extension, you will define in a JSON file, basically, what your extension is bringing, like which commands and maybe which document type and stuff like that. And the idea is to be able to create placeholder in JupyterLab and only load the asset when the feature itself is needed. So the interesting consequence is that we're gonna be able to start the whole application faster. So that's one of the goals. And also by having stuff in a data model, we can probably imagine some crazy use case, like some crazy analysis ahead of time or stuff like that, without having to load the code to know exactly what the plugin is doing. So that's a good one. I like that a candidate is proposing for that one. And the other one is was proposed as a small project, is to push the usage of the UI toolkit in JupyterLab. So yeah. Then it's just I want to point out 2 PR that are work in progress, so that if people are interested and want to help, they can contribute. So after improving or introducing the configuration for using dev container on the Jupyter repository, I'm pushing to use the Docker to run all the CI on Docker, mainly to speed it up. As I said, the initial experiment is very promising. We can even win some like 1 or 2 CPRs per PR. And for the integration test, that means also that we can start doing using the sharding of Playwright. So meaning instead of running I think we're at almost 500 integration tests sequentially or almost sequentially, we can split the job and ask for like 6 different jobs and have 80 of them run in parallel. So that will speed up the overall time for doing all the job. So I'm making good progress. The main thing I still need to do is to use volumes to be able to have the artifacts created as they are for now in the CI, because as the tests are run in the Docker, then you need to bring the data out of the Docker to create the artifact in the CI. I mean, it's not a big deal. It's just it takes some time to set up everything correctly. So yeah, if people are interested to and have good knowledge on Docker, they can give a hand. The idea is that it's not too difficult for most of the developers to understand what's going on, but the detail may be tricky, like about caching and stuff like that. That's the whole point. And a consequence of that, if we decide to merge or so, is that we'll be able to update the snapshot, for example, for the integration test locally, because we will not depend any longer on the GitHub CI VM configuration, as everything is going to be running on Docker. So that may also help updating only the snapshots that are needed directly and stuff like that. So there are some nice side effects. And the last nice side effect I would like to achieve is to be able to publish small images for every PR so that we can easily test either online or locally the latest version of a given PR. But that one may be tricky, like, because to just give you an idea, the size of the Docker, the dev Docker, it's roughly 3 gigabyte. And so we can definitely not store that one for every PR. So probably the idea would be to just create a small image that contains a small Python environment with JupyterLab so that you can at least try JupyterLab itself. Yeah, we have also that. That's true. So just for people that haven't seen it, Jeremy commented on the chat that we already have the releaser assets that can be used for testing. Yeah, my idea was to basically to have only JupyterLab, but to build the asset in non-minimized version, because I think it's a middle ground that we can have. You can test and you can at least more quickly debug and see if something is wrong. You can at least use that also for it. I mean, with the release asset, you can do it. It's just you need to build again with non-optimized. It's just like, so I will try and we'll see what comes out of that. And finally,
I have a small question on on this. I think it's going to be really nice to speed up the CI. I just had a question about the complexity of this for someone who might not be familiar with Docker. Like if we have contributors that come to the repo and maybe are not familiar with Docker, would they be able to figure out what is going on a PR if something fails, or do they need to also learn a bit about Docker itself?
Yeah, that's the question I feel a bit awkward to answer as I know quite well Docker. I mean, what I'm trying to do is so every time, like how the tests are executed is always through the CI test that we get in script we get in the JupyterLab repository. So like there is no secret step just for Docker, but the building itself of the Docker image is probably where new contributors may get lost, I guess, if they really want to understand what's going on. That's the trouble of Docker.
If you end up implementing this, I mean, I would be happy to try to work up some documentation for that for new users.
Thanks a lot, Eric. And
So
yeah.
it looks like the complexity might not be around the Docker itself, as long as it's building correctly. The complexity which I'm afraid of is around the visual regression tests. So sharding, like, what is the result when they fail? Do I get a single report that I can download and preview, or do I get 8 reports?
That's a good question. I haven't looked like yet if I can merge them. Maybe they get something in Playwright. I need to look at it, especially because I discovered I was hit today also by a change in the upload action, the upload artifact action of GitHub. I don't know if you have seen that, but with V4, before V4, if you said that you have a matrix of jobs and you set your artifact as a given name that's constant for every step of your matrix, every combination of your matrix, then it was merging it. But basically they were having bugs with that. So now it's forbidden. You need to have a different name for every combination of matrix parameters you're providing. So for now, for sure, like by default, you will have 8 reports, but maybe maybe there is already something that allows to somehow merge it. I don't know. That's a good question.
Well,
I would need to look
there
at
are
it.
services. There are services which we could use. The problem is that they are paid for. It might be possible to use some open source code which merges the reports. Like currently, I don't see any artifacts in your pull request being produced. I
Yeah,
see the Docker image and as list.
Yeah, it's what I said is the main thing that I need to work on now is to use volumes to be able to extract artifact out of the Docker for production of GitHub artifact.
So the reason why I say that this worries me is that when there are failures in multiple steps, in multiple parts, like the contributor would have to click on, I don't know, 4 of these 8 fragments and scroll and find what's happening, and then 4, 6 artifacts. So this is like, the benefit is enormous because I see that it's coming down to like 7 minutes for building the Docker, and then possibly 5 or 10 minutes for each of the shards. So that takes the total time from 50 minutes to 15, which is great. It just that's like the final mile will be difficult to achieve, making this experience of actually looking at the reports pleasant. And yeah, I will try to find time once this pull request is like more ready to see whether we can find a way forward here.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, for new contributors in particular, just ensuring we have that explanations of this stuff in here documented somewhere is going to be important. Because as you point out, right, every contributor is going to have to deal with that if they have problems. So, but yeah, I'm all for being involved with that.
Thanks for all the feedback. And then the last point, through Google Summer of Code, I've been made aware of the Open Source Security Foundation. So basically, this is a group of people that is building mainly practices regarding security for improving any open source software. They came up with a GitHub Actions that create some scorecard that are evaluating projects against some rules. The idea is to be able to track how we align with the good practices and to improve them if possible. So I have opened a PR to add it. And the other thing that's in that PR is also to add a badge. So they have a second initiative. They have a huge form in which you need to answer lots of questions about what are your practices regarding security. Do you have like a way to report vulnerability? Do you answer new bugs in a certain period of time and stuff like that? So there is a long form to fulfill. I'm still doing it, but at the end, then you can link to that form through a badge that say that give you some kind of coverage of how good your practice are against the best practices. And because that foundation is part of the Linux Foundation, and we are moving as Jupyter into a Linux Foundation. So I think it will be good also for us to start aligning with the best practice that they have. So yeah, that's why I think it's yet another thing to do, but it's for the greater good, I think. So don't hesitate to comment either on the PR itself or yeah, we may.
Yeah, I was about to say this is being recorded, Frederick. Is that actually moving
Yeah,
forward?
thanks for the reminder. It's not yet done. It's the proposal.
Okay.
But whatever the decision on the move to Linux Foundation or not, improving the practice and showing that we are aware that it's an important subject is it's a way to prove it by applying to those kind of practices. And that was all for me.
Okay. Well, I'm not hearing any questions. Sorry. Trying to pull this back up. Jeremy is next up on the agenda.
Yeah. So last time, or the time before, I talked a little bit about this RSPAC experiment that I was trying in a different repo. So out of curiosity, I wanted to see like how much of the lab CI would pass by doing this switch. So that I put up a PR to switch everything we have from Webpack to RSPAC. Let's see. Yeah, I posted the link to the PR, and there were a few things that that were not supported yet, but they made a release. I think yesterday that at least removed one blocker. But then it's surprisingly, I think most of the CI passes there are still two checks that fail, and then I think the UI test are also failing due to some differences in terms of CSS. So there might be something to investigate there. So I think overall it's looking good, but of course it's still very early. So I'm not sure we can get that in for 4.2. I think it's gonna be a bit too tight. So maybe I will try to keep the PR up to date. Try to keep it on top of the latest main. And see what we should do with this. So maybe we need to also look into like whether there are some Webpack plugins that people may be using that we should keep support for. But yeah, otherwise it's nice because I think I posted a screenshot on like the dev build, which was around 50 seconds with Webpack and then down to 10 seconds with RSPack, which is nice. It's also going to speed up the CI quite a bit if we do the switch. So yeah, if you want to check it out, it's still a draft. And the other item I had was that I put all of the recordings we had on Zoom on the YouTube channel for the JupyterLab meetings. So now they should all be there. I'll try to also stay up to date and post them every week. So we also have a JupyterLab playlist, which is a bit easier to browse if if you're only interested in the JupyterLab meetings. Thinking we could maybe sort the playlist in reverse order, so we have the newer meetings at the top. But yeah, that's it for me.
Okay. Well, I saw that. Let me just pull up the agenda one more time. Thank you so much, Jeremy, for taking care of the old recordings, by the way. That's tedious work, but I appreciate you doing that. Mike had something he wanted to discuss off the record. Is there anything that anyone would like to discuss on the record before I turn off the recording? All right, well, I'm not hearing anything, so brace yourselves. I'll stop the recording in 3, 2,